Colorado has ski towns, mountain towns, and mining towns. Everyone knows that. But scattered across the state are 15 places so strange they sound made up. A town that throws a full winter festival around an actual frozen corpse. A town where every single street is named after a dinosaur. And a dying coal town that quietly became the sex change surgery capital of the entire world. But here is what is really wild. None of these towns started out weird. Every single one of them became bizarre because it was the only way to survive. Colorado's boom and bust history left behind hundreds of dying towns, mining camps that ran out of ore, rail stops that lost the railroad, crossroads that lost the cross traffic. Most of them vanished completely, rotting wood and rusted nails scattered across empty mountain passes. But a handful refused to disappear. They did it by becoming the strangest places in America. These are 15 Colorado towns that bet everything on the most unusual identity they could find, and it worked. Nederland sits at about 8,200 feet in the mountains west of Boulder. It is a small town with a big problem, or rather, a cold one. In the early 1990s, a Norwegian man named Trygve Bauge shipped his dead grandfather's body to the United States and stored it in a tough shed behind a house, packed in dry ice at roughly minus 60 degrees. The plan was cryonic preservation on a budget. The town found out. Officials were horrified and then confused, because no law in the books actually covered keeping a frozen corpse in your backyard. So they passed one. The town created an ordinance banning the storage of human remains on private property. But here is where the story turns. Instead of burying the scandal, the locals leaned into it. They created Frozen Dead Guy Days, a full winter festival built around a real frozen body. There are coffin races down icy streets, a hearse parade through town, costume contests, live music, and thousands of visitors pouring into a tiny mountain community every March to celebrate the single strangest thing that had ever happened there. The festival grew so popular that it eventually outgrew Nederland entirely. In 2023, the event moved to nearby Estes Park because the town simply could not handle the crowds anymore. Nederland is proof of the pattern that runs through this entire list. When a small Colorado town faces slow death, the ones that survive are the ones willing to get weird. Nederland chose the frozen grandpa, and it became a global brand. The surgery that changed a town. Those first examples were playful, almost accidental, but the next town on this list is something deeper. A place that became medically historic because a single person said yes when everyone else said no. Trinidad sits in southern Colorado, pressed against the New Mexico border. For decades, it was a coal town. Miners worked the seams, trains hauled the fuel, and the economy ran on extraction. But when coal declined, Trinidad started dying the way dozens of Colorado towns have died, slowly, quietly, one closed storefront at a time. Then, in 1969, a former Korean War MASH surgeon named Dr. Stanley Biber performed his first sex reassignment surgery. He was not a specialist. He was the only doctor in town, a general practitioner who delivered babies and set broken bones. But a patient asked, he studied the procedure, and he did it. Word spread through networks that had almost nowhere else to turn. Over the next 35 years, Dr. Biber performed roughly 5,000 gender-affirming surgeries. At his peak, colleagues estimated he was performing around 60% of the world's sex change operations, all out of a small hospital in a former coal town that most Americans could not find on a map. Trinidad did not plan to become the global center of transgender surgery. It happened because one doctor in one remote town was willing to do what the rest of the medical establishment would not. A dying coal town found a second life in the most unexpected specialty imaginable, and for thousands of patients, it was the only place on Earth that would help them. The Bermuda Triangle of the West. If Trinidad shows how one person can redefine a town, Crestone shows how one person's vision can create an entirely new kind of place. Crestone has roughly 140 permanent residents, but it has more than 24 temples, monasteries, ashrams, stupas, and a Mesopotamian-style ziggurat. It also has a legal outdoor funeral pyre, one of very few in the entire country. The story of how this happened starts in the late 1970s, when a United Nations official named Maurice Strong bought a massive tract of land at the base of the Sangre de Cristos mountains. A mystic told him the land held special spiritual energy. Native elders said the same. So Strong started giving parcels away to religious groups from around the world: Zen Buddhists, Carmelite Catholics, Hindu devotees, and Tibetan monks. They came, they built, and they stayed. The result is a tiny multi-faith village unlike anything else in America, tucked against 14,000-foot peaks in one of Colorado's most remote valleys. And the valley itself adds another layer. Crestone sits in the San Luis Valley, which believers have long called the Bermuda Triangle of the West. Decades of UFO sightings, unexplained lights, and bizarre cattle mutilations have made the valley a magnet for anyone drawn to the unexplained. Whether you believe any of it or not, Crestone exists. With 140 people, more than 24 spiritual centers, and a valley that people swear is not quite normal. UFOs and cat mayors. Those first 3 towns each had a visionary behind them, a festival creator, a surgeon, a philanthropist. But the next 2 survived on something even stranger: pure absurdity. Hooper has about 100 people. A rancher named Judy Messeline was losing money on cattle in the San Luis Valley, the same valley where all those UFO sightings keep happening. So she made a business decision that no MBA program would ever endorse. She built a 10-foot UFO watchtower in a field, surrounded it with plastic aliens, and created an energy garden filled with offerings from visitors, expired credit cards, plastic noses, and handwritten prayers. Psychics who visited claimed the site sat on 2 intersecting energy vortices. By 2015, Messeline had logged 96 reported sightings from the platform. 26 of them were her own. What started as a half-joke roadside attraction became the town's entire economy. In rural Colorado, a plastic alien and a good story can keep the lights on. Guffey is even smaller. About 35 people live in this former gold camp, which sits inside the caldera of a 25-million-year-old collapsed volcano. The town has no gas station, no church, and no supermarket. But it has had multiple cat mayors. One feline mayor, a cat named Monster, was allegedly killed by an owl while in office. Another cat served for years before a golden retriever named Shanda took over and reportedly abolished the leash law. Political apathy turned into performance art, and it keeps journalists and curious tourists showing up to a place that otherwise has no reason to appear on anyone's map. Towns named by accident. Some Colorado towns did not need a festival or a gimmick. Their names alone did all the work. No Name sits near Glenwood Springs, along Interstate 70, next to No Name Creek and No Name Canyon. During highway construction, officials needed a label for exit 119. Someone wrote No Name as a temporary placeholder on the paperwork. It stuck. When the state later came back and asked residents what they actually wanted to call the place, they wrote No Name on the forms, on purpose. They voted to keep the joke. Now it is printed on every highway sign, and the town gets visitors who pull off the interstate just to take a photo. Dinosaur was originally incorporated as Artesia in 1947, a forgettable name for a forgettable town. But in 1966, residents voted to rename it Dinosaur to ride the coattails of nearby Dinosaur National Monument. Then they went all in. Streets were renamed Brontosaurus Boulevard, Stegosaurus Freeway, Tyrannosaurus Trail, and Cletosaurus Circle. About 300 people now live on dinosaur-themed addresses, and the town gets steady traffic from families who cannot resist the novelty. Hygiene has the strangest origin of the 3. It was originally called Pella, but in 1881 a reverend opened a facility called the Hygienic House, a 3-story, 35-room tuberculosis sanitarium with a glass-enclosed sun deck. The town renamed itself after the sanitarium. That might sound minor until you learn the context. At its peak, up to a third of Colorado's entire population had come to the state seeking treatment for tuberculosis. Whole communities existed because people were desperately chasing dry mountain air and hoping it would save their lungs. Hygiene's name is a fossil of that forgotten health migration, a time when Colorado was not a vacation destination but a last resort. So far, every town on this list survived by being weird, but the next two survived by being extreme, in the most literal sense possible. Alma sits at roughly 10,500 feet above sea level. It is the highest incorporated town with permanent residents in the entire United States. Its post office is the highest in the country. The air is thin enough that visitors from lower elevations sometimes struggle to walk uphill without stopping to catch their breath. Alma does not market itself aggressively. It does not need to. The altitude speaks for itself. Leadville, at about 10,150 feet, is the highest incorporated city. During the silver boom of the 1880s, it had 30,000 residents, opera houses, and more saloons than anyone could count. When silver crashed, the population collapsed. Leadville was heading toward ghost town status. Then it reinvented itself around the very thing that made life there so difficult. Today, it hosts the Leadville Trail 100, one of the most brutal ultramarathons on the planet. Runners call it the race across the sky. The course climbs above 12,600 feet, and the thin air turns every mile into a battle against your own lungs. Endurance athletes now travel from around the globe to race through a town that nearly vanished after silver went bust. The altitude that made life hard became the thing that made Leadville famous. Ghost Town, Casino Town. 3 mining towns died, but they died in completely different ways. St. Elmo was founded in 1880 and once held 2,000 residents. After mining collapsed and rail service ended in 1922, almost everyone left. Because nobody bothered to redevelop the site, roughly 43 original buildings survived intact at nearly 10,000 feet. St. Elmo became one of the best preserved ghost towns in America, frozen in time not by intention, but by indifference. Nobody cared enough to tear it down, and that neglect turned out to be its greatest asset. Cripple Creek took a different path. It produced an estimated 22.4 million ounces of gold over its lifetime. At its peak, 50,000 people lived there, but fires and price crashes gutted the population, and by the late 20th century it was drifting toward oblivion. Then Colorado legalized limited stakes gambling in 1991, and casinos moved into Cripple Creek's restored Victorian buildings, slot machines humming inside a National Historic Landmark district. Central City followed the same arc: gold bust, near death, gambling resurrection. But it added another layer, marketing itself as both the richest square mile on Earth and one of Colorado's most haunted places. Gold rush wealth and ghost stories, packaged side by side for tourists who want history with a shiver. 3 towns, 3 responses to the same crisis. One accepted death gracefully. The other 2 refused to go, even if it meant filling their Victorian parlors with slot machines. Where the bulls cry. Some towns preserve their history, others build casinos, and then there is the town that built its entire identity around fried bull testicles. Severance sits on the plains of northern Colorado, a small agricultural community that could easily disappear into the landscape of feed stores and grain elevators. But Bruce's Bar has served Rocky Mountain oysters, deep-fried bull testicles, since 1957. The dish became so iconic that the town adopted an official slogan, "Where the geese fly and the bulls cry." Cartoons of anxious-looking bulls cover the bar's exterior. An annual motorcycle rally called the Nut Run ends there. Severance leaned into the one thing that made it different from every other small plains town in Colorado, and that one thing happened to be testicles. A survival strategy does not have to be dignified. It just has to be memorable. The town that almost disappeared twice. After all these towns that found clever ways to survive, festivals, surgery, altitude, absurdity, and testicles, there is one more. And this one is a reminder that survival is never guaranteed. Last Chance is an unincorporated crossroads on the eastern Colorado plains. It earned its name because it was literally the last place to buy fuel and supplies for many miles in any direction. Storm chasers know the area for its spectacular tornado footage, wide open plains where you can see a funnel cloud from 30 miles away. But on June 25, 2012, a wildfire sparked by a vehicle's flat tire burned roughly 45,000 acres and destroyed most of the tiny community. Only a few charred structures survived, including the United Methodist Church. A town named for being the last chance was nearly erased by a single spark. No festival could save it. No slogan, no gimmick, no reinvention. Just fire, wind, and dry grass. That fragility is the real story underneath all the weirdness on this list. The pattern. Pull back far enough and you see it clearly. Colorado is full of towns that should have vanished, mining camps that ran out of ore, rail stops that lost the railroad, crossroads that lost the cross traffic. The ones that survived did something counterintuitive. They stopped trying to be normal. They leaned into the frozen corpse, the dinosaur streets, the fried testicles, the UFO tower. They turned their strangest trait into their reason to exist. But underneath the absurdity, there is a real pattern. Every one of these towns is a case study in what happens when a community decides that its identity matters more than its size. A town of 35 people with a cat mayor is still a town. A town of 140 with 24 temples is still alive. A town named No Name on Purpose is still on the map. That is not just a Colorado story. That is an American one. If you want to see how geography drew invisible lines through other states and why some places thrive while others vanish, check out one of the videos on screen. And if you have not already, subscribe.